Some people treat warnings like suggestions, right up until reality proves otherwise. Here are 5 shocking cases where refusing to listen wasn't just foolish, it was fatal. What was meant to be a relaxing day by the sea quickly turned into a terrifying tragedy, one that perfectly shows how ignoring warnings can have devastating consequences. On the rocky western coastline of Tenerife Island, a group of swimmers gathered at a popular natural pool, drawn by its beauty and reputation among tourists. Nestled along the coast near Los Gigantes, the pool at Isla Cangrejo is surrounded by rugged volcanic rocks on one side and separated from the open ocean by a concrete barrier on the other. At first glance, it looks like a safe place to swim, a calm pocket carved into the wild Atlantic. But that sense of safety can be dangerously misleading. On that particular day, the ocean was anything but calm. Authorities had already issued wave warnings across the area. Conditions were rough, with powerful swells capable of crashing over the barrier and flooding the pool in seconds. In fact, local reports indicated that the pool had been officially closed to swimmers days earlier due to the dangerous conditions. Signs had been put up. Barriers were in place. The message was clear: stay out. But some people chose not to listen. Despite the warnings, a group of swimmers entered the pool. Whether it was overconfidence, curiosity, or simply ignoring the risks, their decision would soon lead to disaster. Without much warning, a massive wave surged over the barrier, carrying immense force with it. In an instant, the peaceful pool transformed into a violent trap. The wave swept several swimmers off their feet and dragged them out toward the open sea. Panic set in immediately. The smooth volcanic rocks at the bottom of the pool made it nearly impossible to maintain footing, and once caught in the current, there was little anyone could do. Witnesses described how quickly everything happened. One moment, people were swimming. The next, they were gone, pulled into the powerful ocean beyond the barrier. Emergency services were alerted, and a large-scale rescue operation began. Teams rushed to the scene, deploying jet skis and helicopters in a desperate attempt to locate the missing swimmers. The search was intense and urgent, with crews scanning the rough waters for any sign of survivors. Despite their efforts, the outcome was heartbreaking. 3 bodies were recovered during the operation: a 35-year-old man, a 55-year-old woman, and another man whose identity was not publicly disclosed. A 4th victim, a woman who had initially been rescued and airlifted to a hospital, tragically passed away the following day despite medical efforts to save her. Authorities later confirmed that the victims included individuals from Romania and Slovakia, though further details about their identities were not released. Meanwhile, the search continued for a 5th swimmer who had been swept away and remained missing. Rescue teams persisted, combing the area in hopes of finding any trace, but the powerful ocean currents made the task incredibly difficult. Local residents were not surprised by what had happened, but they were deeply shaken. Many pointed out that the danger of the pool during rough weather is well known. When waves are high, they can easily crash over the barrier, turning the pool into a deadly zone. The slippery rocks only make matters worse, offering no grip or stability for anyone trying to escape the pull of the sea. Officials expressed their condolences to the families of the victims while also emphasizing the importance of respecting safety warnings. The mayor of Santiago del Teide urged people to pay attention to posted signs and restrictions, stressing that such measures exist to protect lives. In the end, the ocean did what it always does. It followed its own rules. The real tragedy lies in the fact that this disaster could have been avoided entirely. Some people treat warning signs like suggestions. Others act like rules simply don't apply to them. And, in the most tragic cases, that mindset leads to deadly consequences. One such incident unfolded at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, where a 33-year-old man made a fatal decision that would cost him his life. Despite clear warnings and restricted access signs, he entered a closed and extremely hazardous section of the Kilauea caldera, an area known for its unstable terrain and dangerous volcanic activity. This wasn't a gray area. The section was explicitly off-limits, but like many before him, he chose to ignore that. What followed was not an adventure, but a disaster. The man soon found himself in serious trouble, triggering an overnight search and rescue mission in steep, treacherous terrain. Rescue crews worked tirelessly through the night, navigating dangerous conditions in an effort to locate him. By the next day, they finally found him and airlifted him to a nearby hospital. It was already too late. He was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. And just like that, another name was added to a growing list of preventable deaths, cases where people ignored warnings, crossed barriers, and paid the ultimate price. This wasn't an isolated incident. Across national parks in the United States, a disturbing pattern continues to emerge. Visitors treat these environments like theme parks or city recreation areas, completely underestimating the risks. But these are not controlled spaces. They are wild, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. Experts say the issue comes down to perception. Many tourists simply don't grasp how dangerous these places can be. They see scenic views, photo opportunities, and open landscapes, but fail to recognize the hidden hazards beneath, and the consequences can be brutal. Take Yellowstone National Park, for example. It's one of the most visited parks in the world, and also one of the most dangerous when rules are ignored. Visitors are constantly warned to stay on designated paths, especially in geothermal areas where the ground can be thin and unstable, with boiling water just beneath the surface. Still, people cross those lines. In one case, a tourist got too close to Old Faithful, ignoring safety rules, and ended up facing legal consequences. Others haven't been as lucky. Since the park opened in 1872, nearly 24 people have died from severe burns after stepping off marked trails. Then there are wildlife encounters. An 83-year-old woman was seriously injured after getting too close to a bison. Another example of someone ignoring repeated warnings about keeping a safe distance from animals that can turn aggressive in seconds. And it doesn't stop there. At Bryce Canyon National Park, 2 tourists climbed over a safety railing for a better view. It cost them their lives. One wrong step on unstable ground, and there was no second chance. In Olympic National Park, an 18-year-old ignored warnings about slippery terrain near a waterfall. He stepped onto unstable rocks, lost his footing, and fell 50 feet to his death. The pattern is painfully clear. Warning signs are posted. Barriers are installed. Rangers issue constant reminders. And yet, some visitors still believe they know better. They step over fences, wander into restricted zones, or get dangerously close to wildlife, all for a better view, a photo, or simply because they think nothing will happen to them. But nature doesn't care about confidence or entitlement. It doesn't give second chances to those who ignore its risks. Park officials and rangers do everything they can to keep people safe. They understand the dangers better than anyone, and they design rules specifically to prevent tragedies like these. But when those warnings are ignored, there's only so much anyone can do. In a scene that left tourists stunned and horrified, a man at Yellowstone National Park learned the hard way that wild animals are not there for close-up encounters. What began as a casual moment in one of the most famous parks in the world quickly turned into a painful and completely avoidable incident, all because of one simple mistake: getting too close. The animal involved wasn't a predator like a bear or a wolf. It was a bison, an animal many visitors mistakenly view as calm, slow, and harmless. But that perception couldn't be further from reality. Weighing up to 2,000 pounds and capable of running faster than a human, bison are powerful, unpredictable, and highly protective of their space. And on that day, one of them made that fact painfully clear. The incident took place near the iconic Old Faithful area, a popular spot where crowds often gather to watch natural wonders and, unfortunately, get a little too comfortable around wildlife. Among those visitors was a 30-year-old man from New Jersey who, along with a larger group, approached a bison far closer than safety guidelines allow. Despite clear rules and repeated warnings from park officials, the group ignored the recommended distance. Visitors are instructed to stay at least 25 yards away from bison at all times, a rule that exists for a reason. But like many before him, the man seemed to believe that nothing would happen. He was wrong. The bison, likely feeling threatened by the crowd encroaching on its space, reacted instinctively. In a sudden burst of movement, it charged and gored the man, striking him with its horns. The attack happened quickly, leaving little time for anyone to react. Shocked onlookers watched as the situation unfolded, turning what should have been a peaceful visit into a moment of chaos. Emergency responders were called, and the injured man received medical attention shortly after the attack. Fortunately, his injuries were reported as minor, and he was transported for further treatment, but the outcome could have been far worse. This wasn't an isolated event. In fact, it marked the second bison-related attack of the summer season in Yellowstone. Just weeks earlier, another man had been injured in a similar encounter after getting too close to one of these massive animals. Park officials have repeatedly emphasized that bison are responsible for more injuries in Yellowstone than any other animal. Despite their calm appearance, they are highly unpredictable and will defend themselves if they feel threatened. Their speed, strength, and sharp horns make them far more dangerous than many visitors realize. And yet, incidents like this continue to happen. Warnings are posted throughout the park. Rangers constantly remind visitors to keep their distance. Social media campaigns reinforce the message, respect wildlife. But time and time again, people ignore these guidelines, often for a better view, a photo, or simply because they underestimate the risk. Experts point out that while bison attacks are relatively rare, they can be deadly. In recent years, multiple incidents have resulted in serious injuries, including cases where victims suffered severe trauma to the chest and abdomen. What makes these encounters particularly frustrating is how preventable they are. The animals are not seeking out humans, they are reacting to being approached, surrounded, or threatened. The danger arises not from aggression, but from human behavior. In this case, the bison did exactly what it was wired to do. It defended its space. The real mistake came from those who chose to ignore the rules. Every year, people lose their lives in places that are clearly marked as dangerous, and almost every time, the story begins the same way. Someone decides the warning signs don't apply to them. In a now widely shared video, a pair of hikers were caught doing exactly that. Filmed by a bystander, the footage shows two individuals casually ignoring a clearly marked safety barrier along a steep and dangerous cliffside. The sign right next to them couldn't have been more direct. Danger. Do not go beyond this point. And yet, there they were, on the wrong side of the fence, acting as if the rules were optional. The man stood just beside the warning sign, already past the restricted boundary, while the woman wandered dangerously close to the edge of the cliff. Instead of showing caution, both appeared focused on taking photos, seemingly more concerned about capturing the perfect shot than acknowledging the very real dangers surrounding them. It's the kind of behavior that has become all too common in outdoor spaces. People travel to breathtaking locations, see a barrier or a sign, and immediately assume it's either exaggerated or meant for other people. The mindset is simple but dangerous. Nothing will happen to me. But that assumption is exactly what gets people killed. The video's caption delivered a powerful message, one that is often repeated but rarely taken seriously enough. Every year, lives are lost because someone ignored a warning that was put there to protect them. These signs aren't decorations. They exist because someone, at some point, was injured or killed in that exact spot. And yet, people continue to step over fences, cross boundaries, and take unnecessary risks. Statistics back this up. According to the National Park Service, hundreds of people die in national parks each year. Many of these deaths are not caused by unpredictable events, but by entirely preventable mistakes. Falls from cliffs, drowning in unsafe waters, and dangerous encounters with wildlife are among the most common causes. Cliffside falls alone account for a significant number of fatalities. It only takes one slip, one misstep, or one moment of lost balance, and there is no recovery. The ground doesn't forgive mistakes. What makes situations like the one in the video so frustrating is how avoidable they are. The danger is clearly marked. The boundaries are obvious. The risks are well known. But some individuals still choose to ignore all of it, often for something as trivial as a photo or a moment of thrill. And it's not just about personal risk. When people ignore safety rules in natural environments, they also put others in danger. Rescue teams are often forced to enter hazardous conditions to save individuals who should never have been there in the first place. In some cases, wildlife can also be affected. Animals that come into contact with reckless humans may react defensively, and in certain situations they are later euthanized as a result. So the consequences don't stop with one bad decision, they ripple outward. Reactions to the video were a mix of disbelief and frustration. Many viewers couldn't understand how anyone could stand right next to a warning sign and still choose to ignore it. Some sarcastically referred to the behavior as Darwin Award material, a dark way of pointing out how recklessness can lead to self-inflicted consequences. Nature doesn't adjust itself for human carelessness. It doesn't pause for photos or second chances. It operates on its own terms, and those who ignore that fact often pay the price. A young man who chose to ignore repeated warnings about dangerous waters off the coast of Reunion Island paid the ultimate price for that decision. What should have been just another day in the ocean turned into a fatal encounter, one that authorities and locals had been trying to prevent for years. The victim, 26-year-old Alexandra Nosance, was no stranger to the risks. In fact, he had previously worked as a shark spotter for a surfing association, making his actions even more baffling. Despite his knowledge of the area's dangers, he entered the water to go bodyboarding along the island's northeast coast, an area where swimming and water sports had been strictly banned. Those restrictions weren't arbitrary. Reunion Island has earned a grim reputation as one of the world's most dangerous shark attack hotspots. Over the past decade, the island has recorded numerous encounters between humans and sharks, many of them fatal. Clear warnings, red flags, and even physical barriers had been put in place to keep people out of high-risk zones. But, like many before him, Nosance chose to ignore them. Reports suggest that he and a group of other young people had been frequenting the area for several days. Locals had reportedly warned them about the presence of sharks in the waters, urging them to stay out. Still, the warnings were brushed aside. Then came the moment that proved just how real the danger was. While bodyboarding, Nosance was suddenly attacked by a shark. The animal bit into his leg with devastating force, severing a major artery. In the open ocean, far from immediate medical help, the injury was catastrophic. Fishermen nearby managed to pull him from the water and bring him ashore. But despite their efforts, it was already too late. He was pronounced dead shortly afterward, having lost too much blood from the injury. Authorities later confirmed what many already knew. This was an entirely preventable tragedy. In an official statement, local government representatives emphasized that the incident occurred in a zone where water activities had been explicitly forbidden. The rules were not suggestions. They were life-saving measures designed to keep people out of harm's way. Reunion Island's history with shark attacks makes this painfully clear. Since 2011, there have been around 20 recorded incidents, with several resulting in death. The frequency and severity of these attacks forced authorities to take drastic action, including banning swimming and surfing in certain areas. At one point, the situation became so dangerous that surfing competitions were suspended for 5 years. The decision followed a series of attacks, including one involving Eric Dargent, a local surf champion who lost a limb after being bitten. Even after competitions cautiously resumed, strict safety measures remained in place. Shark nets were installed, warning systems were strengthened, and public awareness campaigns were launched. Red flags were used to signal dangerous conditions, and officials repeatedly urged both locals and tourists to stay out of restricted waters. Yet incidents continued to happen. Just months before Nosance's death, another young surfer entered the water despite a visible red warning flag. That encounter ended in severe injuries, with the victim losing both an arm and a leg after a shark attack. These are not isolated cases. They are part of a pattern, one where warnings are ignored, risks are underestimated, and consequences arrive without mercy. What makes Nosance's story particularly striking is that he understood the risks better than most. Having worked as a shark spotter, he knew exactly why those waters were off limits. He knew what could happen, and yet he went in anyway. The ocean around Reunion Island is beautiful, but it is also unpredictable and, at times, deadly. Sharks are not intruders in these waters. They are part of the natural ecosystem, acting on instinct. The real danger arises when humans choose to ignore that reality. Ignoring them doesn't make the danger disappear. Sometimes it brings it closer.